You're welcome.
We love you.
Thank you.
So how's it going? How's the country?
Everything's.
I can, Rizzo's super easy. He's just like this. I could fall right into that one. Which is why Rizzo was my favorite character, because he's so easy.
All these young puppeteers, not necessarily young, but all these puppeteers doing something with puppets. And I got asked to be a part of that show. And it turned out that I happened to be the only person there who was doing Muppet-style puppets, you know, mouth like this,
Right.
and the rods on the hands. And I don't know, Carol took notice of that. And about 6 months later, I mean, I never expected, it was a weekend, I never expected to hear from him again.
Sure.
And I didn't go looking for a job. I went because it was very cool to meet somebody who worked on Sesame Street, you know. And he got in touch with me and said that Jim was looking for a couple of new puppeteers. We thought for Sesame Street at the time,
Right.
and he thought I should audition. And by the way, so long story short, too late. I was in touch with Jim. I sent him a videotape of some of my puppet work, and I got this phone call from Jim, which was amazing, where he said, "I can't tell you what you will be doing, but I can tell you that I will give you a job. You'll either be building puppets or you might be performing puppets. I don't know which." And he said, "I'm not going to send you to Sesame Street." He said, "I want to bring you over to London to do the Muppet Show," because we're about the third season of the show. So I'm this kid, you know, I'm like 18, 19. Wow. And I kind of got picked up by the scruff of the neck in Atlanta and dropped in England, you know. Real culture shock for me. It took me a long time to figure out how to fit in, but everybody was very welcoming. And once I got on my feet, it was the best thing ever, obviously, you know.
I'd like to open up some questions.
And then he was going to do it. He was all set. He was like on his way to the studio that day or something. And I think it was a film that was just about to come out. And I don't know whose decision it was to can it, but they canned it. And I felt terrible about it, right? Because marketing didn't do it. You know, I felt like I was very flaky in the process, although I really did my due diligence to make it happen.
Right.
But we did them anyway. And it would have been great to have Mark involved, obviously. I think it would have been fantastic. But we still got to do the Muppets as silly characters, you know.
Muppet Vision 3D, you were able to celebrate the closure of it not that long ago.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that experience and saying goodbye to that absolutely amazing project?
Well, it's a funny thing. I know it was a sad, big deal for a lot of the fans. I didn't quite feel that way. I'll tell you why.
Oh, interesting.
When we did that film, you know, we all talked to Disney about how long this thing would run. Partially because we were all making deals. You know, how many years is this going to run? How much are you going to pay us? Kind of thing. That's part of the process, you know. And but they said at the time most of our attractions in the theme park only last about 3 to 5 years. Okay. You know, so
it had a good life.
So it had a long life, you know. And but I'll tell you something. A Comic-Con promoter said to me, his rationale on it was that theater felt like, we decided it felt like a cathedral. It was like walking into the last place that was the last essence of Jim Henson.
Which is what a lot of the fans
yeah,
as well.
and so I understand the emotion around it. My experiences of Jim were very different than that, than a fan experience, but I get that.
Right.
I totally get that, so I understand that. And I'm sorry to see it go, I mean, but from my point of view, when we shot it, it was just the next project we were going to do, and then we were going to move on and do 100 other projects. We had no indication whatsoever it would be the last thing we worked on with Jim.
Right.
You know.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I like on television every single day, watch everything they did, you know. And I just got really fascinated by, because nobody had seen anything quite like the Muppets before. You know, they're these great looking, really attractive colors. And how do they work? How do these guys make these things work? So I got really obsessed with that part of it. And I was a real puppet nerd. And then I started trying to build my own characters. And I wasn't terribly good at it to start with, but I wrote a letter to Jim Henson when I was 10 years old. And Jim wrote back about 6 months later, which was amazing for a 10-year-old kid to get this letter from Jim Henson. And I just asked, you know, have you written any books about how to make puppets? Because I'd like to learn. He wrote back and said, I haven't done that, but I encourage you to keep trying. And there's some simple Muppet patterns that you can get. At that point, you couldn't get the stuff online. I had to get a back copy of an issue of a magazine that he had published these things in. So I got those. I started making puppets. So yeah, it was. I mean, I was just really. It was my passion to learn this, you know, from the time I was about 10 years old. So what Jim didn't know was, it's interesting, by writing me that letter, he actually started mentoring me 9 years before he hired me.
Sure.
You know, it's a really interesting thing to think about it. He didn't know that, but it turned out that way.
Well, folks, if you have any more questions for Steve, go see him in his booth.
Yes.
Go say
yes.
hi to him. Please give a warm welcome. A round of applause.
Okay.